Thanks for tuning in to my channel. I'm gonna react to last night's fight, Canelo versus Munguia. It was a really good fight, but I kind of knew that Canelo was gonna win based on his experience. But at the same time, I had my doubts because Munguia is very young and he actually proved that he could hang in there with him. But where he messed up was when his defense is not the greatest, and I kind of knew that going in. And when Canelo caught him, he was not the same after that. The fight went towards Canelo all the way. It shifted completely after Munguia got caught by a hook from Canelo, because Canelo's good at countering. Like when you go inside and you get comfortable, like the way Munguia did, like that was the biggest mistake he did. He was fighting low. He has to fight high, tall, because he's a tall fighter. So he has to use his advantages, and he failed to do that. He was doing really good. The first 3 rounds, I gave it to Munguia all the way. He looked really good, but he got too comfortable, and he wasn't ready for Canelo's counters. And Canelo is a great counterpuncher, and he conserves a lot of his energy because right now Canelo doesn't have the greatest stamina. He's never been known for having like the great stamina, but he used to throw more combinations when he was in his prime. But since he's not in his prime right now, he conserves his punches, and he knows when to throw and when to counter. And I think that Canelo did a great job in doing that. And Canelo has a mean streak in him. He has a mean streak, so I know that helps him stay in fights. But with mediocre opposition like Munguia was never really anything special. But they gauged making a fight between Canelo and Munguia based on the 2 common opponents that they had with Ryder. Just because Munguia knocked out Ryder and Canelo wasn't able to do it, it doesn't mean that Munguia is going to beat Canelo just because he beat a common opponent in a more spectacular fashion. But styles make fights. Everybody knows that styles make fights. But I truly believe that the fight shifted after Munguia got knocked out. He was not the same after that. And if he would have kept fighting the way he was fighting, but not get careless and leave himself open when he was fighting inside, Munguia would have had a better chance of winning. And I think that at the end of the day, Canelo is still good enough to conserve his energy and beat mediocre opposition like that. But when it comes to David Benavidez, that's a different ball game. That's a different beast right there. Because if Canelo got hit the way he got hit with Munguia, which he got hit a lot, but he was able to get away with it because Canelo wasn't really flustered or affected by those shots. He was strong, Munguia, but not strong enough to like really hurt Canelo. I don't think he really hurt him. I think he did really good in the first 3 rounds. But if he gets if David Benavidez lands the way Munguia landed on him, David Benavidez is gonna destroy Canelo. He would knock him out in 6 or 7 rounds. Or maybe 5 rounds. That's what my friend said. My friend Lewis, he thinks that Canelo does not last 5 rounds with David Benavidez. I kind of agree, because I feel like the way David Benavidez is built, he's really physically big, and he's a really physically bigger man than Canelo. But at the same time, he can make the weight, and they can make a contract where they make the weight and nobody has any advantage over the other, and it'll still be. I'll still give the fight towards David Benavidez, because David Benavidez could make the weight with no problem. But if he gets older, it's going to be harder for him to make that weight. But I totally think that David Benavidez is being ducked by Canelo. Canelo is ducking him. That's a fact. He's been ranked #1 for 3 years, David Benavidez, and Canelo didn't give him the fight. Never did. There's all kind of excuses that he makes about the weight. And he's fought Kovalev, but it's okay to fight Kovalev, being physically bigger than Canelo, because he's over the hill when he fought Canelo. So that's okay for Canelo to do. But I feel like Canelo, I'm not saying he's not a great fighter, but I think he's overrated. I think that Munguia was overrated too, because he struggled with a lot of other fighters. Deverkinchev, whatever his name is, he struggled with him. He really lost to him. And I just feel like it was great promotion from De La Hoya. Oscar De La Hoya is a great promoter. I give him 100% credit, but I know that he only promotes, Mexican fighters. He never promotes anybody that's African American or Puerto Rican. But I understand that's how he's doing it, and I give him respect as a promoter. Puerto Ricans should do that. They should promote Puerto Rican fighters the way De La Hoya promotes Mexican fighters. So I feel like that's another topic, but I talked about it in one of my previous videos if you want to check it out. about the boxing promotion between Mexican promoters, Mexican fighters, and Puerto Rican promoters for Puerto Rican fighters. It's very different in contrast in success. Mexicans are more successful, and I think Puerto Ricans needs to work on that. But you can watch my other previous videos. But I think Canelo is ducking David Benavidez, and I know why. It's not that he's scared of him; he's scared to lose to him. Because the way he would lose to David Benavidez, he's going to be humiliated. He's going to be dominated. I think that it's probably not going to be a competitive fight if Canelo fights David Benavidez, because David Benavidez is not going to get hurt by Canelo's shots. Like the way Canelo's physically smaller than him. And if they make weight, both of them, and they do a contract where they both make the weight limit and they don't go over the weight by too much, I think the fight could be made. And I think David Benavidez can make the weight still comfortably with no problem. But if Canelo's avoiding him and he's not going to make a fight with David Benavidez, then he should retire, or that's what the fans say, right? Because the fans get frustrated. But as a fighter, if you're in a position to make a lot of money and you're the cash cow, you're going to do whatever's comfortable for you. But the greats of the 90s, Felix Trinidad, Roy Jones, all the great ones, James Toney, they never looked for no catch weight. They always fought, like in the weight class that the fighter's in. And these fighters are great. They fought the best at their best. They didn't wait so many years like now. Now, Mayweather took a long time to fight Pacquiao, and they wait so many years to make the fight. And there's so much inactivity that is crazy. Like, people lose interest. People have a short attention span now. And, but I feel like if boxing was more consistent, every 3 months fighters, boxers fight, and they fight the best, and they keep it, on a consistent basis, boxing would do better than UFC. And I think, boxing to me is a better sport than UFC, but UFC promotes the fighters more, and they make the best fights, but boxers make more money than UFC because the fighters are more known. But, it's too much competition with different promoters. But I feel like after the fight, when they asked Canelo about the fight, they asked him, the whole world around the globe, wants to fight, wants to see the David Benavidez fight. So, and he's not trying to make it. No, well, you can't say that. You're saying Molo Tech is saying that Benavidez has no discipline. That type of fighter doesn't beat Canelo. You're talking about something that happened a long time ago, and people learn from their mistakes. He hasn't been undisciplined for the past 3 years or plus. So that's an excuse to make Canelo look like he's so much superior than Benavidez, which is not the case. You have to understand that when a boxer that's young and is in his prime and he's as disciplined as Benavidez has been, because everybody learns from their mistakes. People have different things that they go through, and people learn. Some people learn from their mistakes, some people don't. And David Benavidez has shown that he's disciplined because he's corrected his mistakes. He hasn't done what he did in the past, to not make weight. And they found something in the system, drugs, but he has not shown an inconsistency from the past 3 to plus 4 years, and he's shown that a lot of discipline, and he hasn't shown that inconsistency anymore. So you can't say that he's inconsistent and not disciplined, because he learned from those mistakes, and he hasn't done that. Like, he has not done anything that he's done in the past to disqualify him for not having discipline. He's shown a lot of discipline, and he's been proving it. He's fought fighters that Canelo has refused to fight, like Demetrius Andrade. Demetrius Andrade wanted to fight Canelo, and Canelo refused to fight him and said he was a boring fighter. That was an excuse for him to not fight somebody that has more skills than him, because technically, the skill level of Demetrius Andrade is way better than Canelo. He moves better. He's better with his legs, but they didn't promote him right. And I feel like, okay, he moved up in weight. Like, I guess he was naturally 154, and when he fought David Benavidez, he moved up to his weight class, 168. But he still has the technique, and he's still a quality boxer champion in the 154. And he fought him. David Benavidez fought him, and despite not being in the same weight class, I know a lot of people will say that, but a lot of times skills pays the bills. And even if you're in a different weight class, in some cases, your body just grows into the 168, even if you naturally was for a 154 pounder for a while. But in Demetrius Andrade's case, I think his body actually was already time for him to go to 168. He may not have fought a lot of elite boxers like David Benavidez in that weight class, but his body was ready to be in that weight class, and he was an elite fighter. So I feel like since nobody else wanted to really fight him, you know, and the fights like with David Morrell couldn't be made because he's not established enough to make that fight. But now that he's moving up to 175, he's chasing David Benavidez. David Benavidez is open to fighting him, and I feel like David Benavidez is in a different level, and he's fought Caleb Plant. And remember, styles make fights. Just because Caleb Plant didn't knock out, just because David Benavidez didn't knock out Caleb Plant, doesn't mean that he won't beat Canelo. Because remember, styles make fights, and the referee was kind of like a little bit like the reason why David Benavidez couldn't knock out Caleb Plant, because he was about to, but the referee kept interfering and affected the flow of the fight, the energy of the fight, because David Benavidez was on his way to knocking out Caleb Plant, but the referee allowed Caleb Plant to do certain things to survive, and there's a lot of things that happen. But I feel like David Benavidez, if he fights Canelo, he will definitely destroy Canelo. And I know a lot of people may not agree. I know a lot of it says Andrade had a title without ever fighting a champion. You talk about overrated. Okay, he may have been overrated, but why Canelo didn't fight him? Canelo's fought what's that guy? What's his name? That fighter that he was fighting. There was people didn't know about Caleb Smith, and Sanders, Billy Joe Sanders. What did he ever accomplish? Like, what these fighters were European boxers champions that nobody knew about them until Canelo chose to actually fight them, because nobody knew about Caleb Smith. Nobody knew about him, and Canelo beat him. He was overrated, and Canelo. The only good fighter that Canelo beat, that I think that he really beat, was Daniel Jacobs. I think that was a good champion that he beat. But Golovkin, who did Golovkin ever fight? Golovkin was good. He was knocking out a bunch of bums and people that nobody knew about. But who did Golovkin ever beat? And then when Canelo fought him, the third fight, he fought him when he got old. He waited for Golovkin to get old. He purposely waited because he knew that he was competition. Like those two fights before the third fight between Golovkin and Canelo, they were very competitive, and Canelo was not dominant in those fights. I feel like the first fight, this is what I feel. I feel like the first fight, Golovkin should have won that fight. They robbed him. The second fight, I think Canelo won by split decision, but it was questionable. A lot of people thought that Canelo lost too, but I think Canelo won by split decision with Golovkin, but it could have went either way. And then Canelo knew how competitive Golovkin was, but who did Golovkin beat before he fought Canelo? He refused to fight Andre Ward. He refused to go up weight class and fight him. If you're great, you should be able to take chances like that. And if you're physically big, like the way he was, he could have made a fight with Andre Ward, Golovkin, but he didn't, because he knew that Andre Ward was without boxing. And people know the Smith brothers. Okay, people know the Smith brothers. But in the United States, what did Caleb Smith accomplish? What did he accomplish? He didn't accomplish, he wasn't an elite fighter like, let's say, David Benavidez. David Benavidez may not have accomplished what Canelo has accomplished, but he fought common opponents, and he looked good against them, like Caleb Plant, and he fought a boxer, that Demetrius Andrade, that Canelo refused to fight. So he did something that Canelo was not willing to do. So if he's so overrated, then he still had skills, whether he's overrated or not. Demetrius Andrade did have skills, but he didn't have the right promotion, and you could see it. He passed the eye test, but as far as fighting Canelo, he never got his opportunity. Canelo should have just gave him the opportunity. And remember, Canelo really lost to Erislandy Lara, the Cuban boxer. The Cuban boxer may not have had an exciting style, but he still beat Canelo. I think he should have won the fight with Canelo. But boxing politics, they say, oh, he was running. Yes, the fans don't want to see that, but he still won the fight. Don't look for an excuse for you losing Canelo. And Canelo has tested positive for PEDs. Well, he's tested positive with an illegal substance. They say they found that in the meat, like that's illegal substance. Canelo has tested positive twice. So, you can't say he didn't know. Like a lot of the stuff with illegal substance, it's very controversial. But, I just feel like if you're gonna fight somebody and you feel like you're the best, Canelo, for example, then he shouldn't use anything illegal to to fight somebody if he knows he's better. And don't look for excuses. I feel like when they tell the truth to Canelo, when they bring up the truth, he gets upset because he can't handle when somebody's honest. Like you could tell Canelo wants to act like he's perfect and try to act like like everything is always that he's always telling the truth. He may be telling the truth about De La Hoya. You don't know what kind of deal they had, and he left De La Hoya, and De La Hoya has animosity towards him leaving the company because Canelo's a big name. But at the same time, Canelo, has to appreciate that the Golden Boy got him partially to where he's at right now. At least be thankful. But I could understand the business part. We don't know the sinister stuff that always goes on exactly to the detail. But I feel like in both those cases, both of them are telling the truth on each other. They're both telling the truth on each other. So I don't know how real it is for each one, but I know there's some truth in what both of them are saying to each other, like the animosity. But Munguia lost, and I know Canelo wanted to really stick it to not Canelo, well, him too. Oscar De La Hoya really wanted to stick it to Canelo by having his fight and Munguia win the fight, but we know that he doesn't have a lot of good defense. Like Munguia was a cherry pick a lot in his career. I don't think he beat Devenchenko, and I feel like the fights that he's been improving, but I just feel like they've been building him really slow. He could have fought Charlo a long time ago, but he refused to because I think they don't believe in his skill set. They didn't think he was ready. So it was all about marketing. And then Jaime Munguia now is using De La Hoya is using the loss against Canelo as a marketing tool, like the way they did when Canelo lost to Mayweather. And I feel like it has nothing to do with you being too young or not ready for the fight. It's just some fighters are not as good as the other, and some fighters' skill set is more superior than the other, more elite. And in Canelo's case, when he fought Mayweather happened to just be the better fighter overall, skillful defense and offense, and timing him. He was able to do that. So it had nothing to do with Canelo not being prepared. I just think he's improved, since that fight. But I think he would never, in their primes, Canelo would never be able to beat Floyd Mayweather. It don't matter. It has nothing to do with age. It has nothing to do with he fought him too young. He was not prepared. Canelo, that's bull. And I feel like the boxer, the Mexican fighters. So you think Tank or Frank Martin gonna win? Who do I think is gonna win? I think Tank Davis. I lean towards towards Tank Davis, but I don't disregard Frank Martin as I don't take him lightly. I feel like Frank Martin has a great chance of pulling up an upset. I like his calm demeanor and the way he's responding to Tank Davis. Tank Davis is trying to punk him and say he's from the suburbs, and he's saying that he don't really mean what he says. Look at the way he talks. But some people are just soft-spoken, and to claim someone is scared is a reach. Yeah. I don't think Canelo's scared of David Benavidez. I just feel like he's scared to lose, to David Benavidez, because he knows that David Benavidez is really physically strong and he has a lot of power and he has boxing skills. So he's scared to lose to him, but he's not scared to fight him. I just think he don't want to lose all the credentials that he has now, as the man in the face of boxing. Let's face it, Canelo is the face of boxing, and he don't want to lose to somebody that's Mexican to take away everything that he built. So it took a long time for him to build. But I feel like if you're the greatest and you're the best, you should fight anybody. You should go out with a bang. You should go out on a high note. And if you lose to David Benavidez, there's no shame in Canelo losing to David Benavidez because he's losing to another great fighter. And eventually, a young fighter that's elite, that's coming up, usually beats an older fighter that's elite, that's on decline and slowing down, which Canelo is slowing down. He's getting hit more frequently. He got hit a lot in the Munguia fight, and I feel like his stamina is worse than it was before. He always had a stamina problem, but he was able to sustain himself when he was in his prime. But in his last fights that he's made, that he's been fighting Charlo, he hasn't been knocking people out for a while already. So, he was conserving his energy, and he was able to time Jaime Munguia, and I feel like that's what he was able to use his experience and time Jaime Munguia, and based on him declining, he used whatever he can, his experience, and conserve his energy. And then whenever Jaime Munguia was careless and coming in, throwing combinations, when he saw the openings, Canelo took advantage and countered. And Jaime Munguia was not ready for those counters. And Canelo's the type of fighter that he still got a lot left as far as like countering and taking advantage of the fighters' lack of defense. He can do it with certain fighters like Jaime Munguia that are limited, but he's not going to be able to do that with David Benavidez because he's a different animal. He's physically bigger, and he has boxing skills. He's very underrated. He has boxing skills and he has power. So I feel like he's not going to be able to. Canelo's not going to be able to do what he did with Munguia to David Benavidez. No way. I saw a lot of holes in his game of Canelo, and I feel like David Benavidez will definitely exploit those holes. I think Canelo's chance to survive or win in David Benavidez fight is to go toe to toe with him, but I don't think that will work because I think physically David Benavidez is too powerful, and people don't see that. You don't see that, but I see it. A lot of people that follow boxing and know boxing, and they're not just casual fans, and they're true to the sport, and they're students of the game. They will see the holes in Canelo's game, and the fact that he won't be able to physically hurt David Benavidez, because we saw that with the Bivol fight, Dimitri the Bivol fight with Canelo. Canelo could not hurt Bivol at all, and Bivol totally outboxed him. And if he had more power, he probably would have knocked out Canelo. But Canelo's the type of fighter that you can't easily knock him out. You really got to be built a certain way because Canelo does have some grit. He has some he has a mean streak in him. When he says stuff like "get the fuck out of here," I want to curse, but he says stuff like that. Like that shows a little bit of his mean streak, and that's what keeps him in the game. But that's not going to be enough to beat David Benavidez, man. I think David Benavidez is going to knock him out. And I feel like, anybody who says, "Oh, I'm hating on Canelo," you are not being objective. You're being a fanboy or a fangirl. If you really know boxing, and this is the way it was in the old school, we go by how you perform, how you did in the Olympics, and how you performed in your last fight, and how do you perform at a certain weight, certain physicalities that certain boxers have, how you perform against them, how many combinations you throw. Did you throw as much combinations as you did in the beginning of your career? And we see a decline, we study it by proof, by evidence. Like the transition of fighters when they're in decline, when they're slowly going into decline, and when they're not in decline, when they first started. That's how you base your observations on why you think the fight is going to fight and win, which one is going to win. How much coulda, woulda, Chuck if I woulda, Chuck? Oh God, this guy's bored. At least you're tuning in. I appreciate you tuning in, to my content. I appreciate anybody that's tuning in. You could be in agreement with me or not in agreement with me, but at the end of the day, you're tuning in because I'm bringing you the facts and I'm entertaining you. But yeah, subscribe to my channel, Tony Also Knows Boxing. Yeah, you know how we do. Tony Also Knows Boxing. And subscribe, and I appreciate all the comments and everything that everybody contributes to the channel. Tony Also Knows Boxing. You know how we do. I keep it real. I keep it funky. I'm unbiased, and I say the truth. I feel like Canelo is avoiding David Benavidez. He proved it, and he proved it again in the interview that he does whatever he wants. And I get it. When you're in that top position, you're going to try to hold on to whatever you can. But if Canelo really wants to get respected and be remembered as a legend, he needs to fight David Benavidez. You don't want him to be known as ducking somebody that could have, beat him. So yeah, Tony Also Knows Boxing. Subscribe to my channel and comment, and I appreciate everything. One love.